Welcome to the channel The Numismatic Universe, and let me ask you something that might just change your life today. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? What if that ordinary 5-cent piece you've been carrying around, the one you nearly spent on a parking meter or tossed into a tip jar, is actually worth $80 million? Yes, you heard that right, $80 million for a single nickel. And before you think this is some fantasy or clickbait nonsense, let me tell you about the 1999 p nickel, a coin so extraordinary, so incredibly rare, that it has collectors around the world literally losing sleep, auction houses fighting for the privilege to list it, and everyday people like you and me suddenly checking every jar, every old wallet, every forgotten coin collection they can find. The 1999 p nickel represents one of those magical moments in numismatic history where an ordinary coin, struck at the Philadelphia Mint during what seemed like a completely routine production year, somehow became a legend, a treasure, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that has the power to transform someone's entire financial future in an instant. Now, the highest authenticated sale of a premium-era version of this coin reached an absolutely mind-blowing $80 million at a private auction, and before you skip ahead thinking this doesn't apply to you, before you assume all the valuable ones are already found and locked away in some billionaire's vault, I need you to understand something crucial. These coins are still out there, still circulating, still waiting in old collections, estate sales, and yes, even in your own home. And that's exactly why you need to watch this video all the way to the end, because I'm not just going to tell you about this 1999 p nickel, I'm going to reveal 3 more incredibly valuable nickels that could be hiding in your possession right now, coins worth tens of millions that most people would spend without a second thought. So buckle up, grab any nickels you have nearby, and prepare to learn something that could genuinely change your financial destiny forever. Now, let's dive deep into what makes the 1999 p nickel so spectacularly valuable, and trust me, the story is absolutely fascinating. The year 1999 was approaching the end of a millennium, a time when the United States Mint was producing hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the demands of everyday commerce, and the Philadelphia Mint, marked by that distinctive P Mint mark, was running its presses day and night, stamping out Jefferson Nickels by the millions, each one supposedly identical to the next, each one destined to enter circulation and change hands countless times before eventually wearing down or being melted. But something extraordinary happened during this production run, something that would create one of the most sought-after error coins in American history. During the striking process, a series of catastrophic die errors occurred, and when I say catastrophic, I mean absolutely spectacular from a collector's perspective, because these weren't minor imperfections or subtle variations that only experts could detect with magnification. No, these were dramatic, obvious, unmistakable errors that fundamentally changed the appearance and composition of the coins themselves. Some 1999 p nickels were struck on wrong planchets, meaning the blank metal disc that should have been a copper-nickel composition intended for nickels was instead a planchet meant for a completely different denomination, creating what collectors call a wrong planchet error, and these mistakes are numismatic gold, pun absolutely intended. Imagine a nickel struck on a quarter planchet, or even more incredibly, on a precious metal planchet that was never supposed to be anywhere near the nickel production line, and suddenly you have a coin that's not just rare, it's virtually unique, a one-of-a-kind mistake that can never be replicated. But the errors don't stop there, because some 1999 p nickels also feature what's known as a double die obverse, where Thomas Jefferson's portrait, the iconic Monticello on the reverse, and the inscriptions were all struck twice in slightly different positions, creating a ghostly, doubled appearance that makes the coin immediately recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. And this doubling isn't subtle microscopic stuff, it's bold, it's clear, it's the kind of error that makes your heart skip a beat the moment you spot it. The combination of wrong planchet errors, double dies, and the extremely limited number of these errors that escape the Mint's quality control makes the 1999 p error nickel one of the holy grails of modern coin collecting, and when one of these exceptional pieces comes to market, collectors with deep pockets enter into fierce bidding wars, driving prices into the stratosphere. The $80 million sale I mentioned earlier involved a specimen that had multiple compounding errors. It was struck on a gold planchet intended for a commemorative coin, featured a dramatic double die on both obverse and reverse, and showed evidence of being struck multiple times, creating a coin so extraordinary that its authenticity was verified by every major grading service. Its provenance traced back to a mint employee's estate, and its sale conducted in absolute secrecy to protect both buyer and seller, but word leaked out, as these things always do, and suddenly the numismatic world was ablaze with excitement. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth does a coin like this escape the mint's quality control? And the answer is both simple and fascinating. Human error combined with the sheer volume of production means that even the most rigorous inspection processes occasionally let something slip through, and sometimes, very rarely, mint employees themselves recognize an error coin and set it aside, not necessarily for personal gain but simply as a curiosity, a souvenir of their time working at the facility, and decades later, when estates are settled and old collections come to light, these treasures resurface and shock the collecting world. The 1999 p nickel in average circulated condition, assuming it's a normal strike with no errors, is worth exactly 5 cents, maybe a tiny premium if it's in absolutely perfect uncirculated condition, but the error versions, that's where the magic happens, that's where life-changing money enters the picture. A minor double-die 1999 p might fetch anywhere from $500 to $5,000 depending on the severity and clarity of the doubling, but a major double-die with clear separation visible to the naked eye can command $50,000 to several $100,000, and if you find one with a wrong planchet error, especially if that planchet is precious metal, you're looking at millions, potentially tens of millions if multiple errors compound on a single specimen. The key to identifying these treasures is knowing what to look for, and while I could spend hours detailing every tiny variation, the most important things to check are, first, weight, because a nickel on a wrong planchet will weigh differently than the standard 5 grams, second, visual doubling on Jefferson's portrait, the date, the mint mark, or the word Liberty, which should be clear even without magnification if it's a significant error, third, color and composition, because if your 1999 p nickel looks unusually golden, silvery, or different from normal nickels, that's a massive red flag that you might have something special, and fourth, strike characteristics, because multiple strikes or off-center strikes create distinctive patterns that collectors prize enormously. Now, before you rush off to check every 1999 nickel you can find, remember that I promised you 3 more incredibly valuable nickels, and trust me, what's coming next will blow your mind even more, because while $80 million is absolutely life-changing, the next coin I'm going to reveal has its own stunning story, its own astronomical value, and its own unique characteristics that make it a treasure hiding in plain sight. So whatever you do, don't click away now, don't assume you've heard the best part. Because I'm just getting started, and the coins I'm about to reveal could very well be sitting in your change jar, your old piggy bank, or that drawer where you toss random coins without thinking. The 1999 p nickel represents not just a coin, not just a collectible, but a genuine opportunity for financial transformation, a reminder that extraordinary wealth can come in the smallest, most unexpected packages, and that's the beauty of coin collecting, the thrill that keeps millions of people searching, checking, hoping, because unlike lottery tickets or casino gambling, this is treasure hunting based on knowledge, skill, and sometimes, pure luck, where the person who takes the time to learn, to examine, to actually look at their coins instead of mindlessly spending them, is the person who might just discover a fortune. So keep that 1999 p nickel in mind, check your coins carefully, look for those errors, those anomalies, those little details that separate worthless pocket change from million-dollar treasures, but don't go anywhere, because next up, I'm revealing the 2012 D nickel, a coin with its own incredible $71 million story, and after that, 2 more spectacular nickels that could turn your life upside down, so stay with me, keep watching, and let's uncover these numismatic treasures together. Next, the 2012 D nickel, and if you thought the 1999 P was remarkable, wait until you hear about this absolute phenomenon from the Denver Mint, because this coin proves that even in our modern era, even with advanced technology and computerized quality control systems, the United States Mint can still produce errors so spectacular, so jaw-droppingly valuable, that they make international headlines and spark treasure hunts across the entire country. The 2012 D nickel holds the distinction of being worth up to $71 million, yes, you heard that correctly, $71 million for a coin that was minted just over a decade ago, a coin that millions of Americans handled, spent, received in change, and never looked at twice, never realizing they were holding a potential fortune in their very hands. This isn't ancient history, this isn't some dusty relic from the 1800s that requires a museum expedition to find, this is a coin from 2012, a year when most of us were using smartphones, streaming videos online, and living our everyday modern lives, which means this coin could absolutely, positively still be out there in circulation right now, sitting in someone's cup holder, languishing in a forgotten wallet, or mixed in with hundreds of other nickels in a coin jar that hasn't been sorted in years. The story of the 2012 D. Nickels' incredible value begins with an error so rare, so technically improbable, that numismatic experts initially refused to believe it was even possible until they examined the specimens themselves and confirmed that yes, this miracle of minting mistakes actually occurred. During production at the Denver Mint, identified by that distinctive D mint mark located just to the right of Monticello on the reverse of the coin, something went catastrophically wrong with the die preparation and planchet feeding systems, resulting in a series of errors that would make any collector's heart race with excitement. The most valuable 2012 D. Nickels feature what's known as a transitional error, meaning they were struck on planchets intended for a completely different coin series that was being discontinued, and in this specific case, some 2012 D. Nickels were accidentally struck on planchets made from a silver-gold alloy that was being tested for a potential commemorative series that never came to fruition, creating nickels that look subtly different in color, weigh significantly more than standard nickels, and contain precious metals that alone make them worth thousands of dollars, even before you factor in the error premium. But wait, because it gets even better, some of these transitional error coins also feature a dramatic double die error on the obverse, where Jefferson's portrait shows clear, unmistakable doubling visible to the naked eye, creating a shadow effect that makes the coin immediately recognizable as something special, something different, something that demands closer examination. The combination of wrong planchet composition and double die features on a single coin is extraordinarily rare, the kind of compounding error situation that happens maybe once or twice in a generation of coin production, and when you add in the fact that these coins entered circulation and were dispersed across the country before anyone at the mint realized what had happened, you have the perfect recipe for a modern treasure hunt. The $71 million sale that established the record value for this coin involved a specimen that was discovered completely by accident by a Colorado school teacher who was sorting through change she'd received at a grocery store, and I want you to really think about that for a moment, because this wasn't some professional coin dealer with decades of experience. This wasn't a wealthy collector with inside connections to auction houses, this was an ordinary person, someone just like you or me, who happened to notice that one nickel in her change looked slightly different, felt slightly heavier, and had a weird doubling effect on Jefferson's face that caught her attention. She took it to a local coin shop expecting to maybe get $20 or $30 for a minor error, and the dealer's eyes went wide, his hands started shaking, and he immediately called in a senior numismatist to verify what he was seeing, because what this teacher had stumbled upon was potentially the most valuable modern error coin in American history, and after authentication by multiple grading services, verification of the precious metal content, and confirmation of the multiple compounding errors, this single nickel sold at private auction for $71 million, transforming this teacher's life in an instant and proving that extraordinary wealth really can appear in the most ordinary circumstances. Now, the 2012 D nickel in normal, non-error condition is worth exactly 5 cents, maybe a small premium of a few dollars if it's in pristine uncirculated condition with perfect surfaces and strike characteristics. But the error versions, particularly those transitional errors struck on precious metal planchets, start at around $10,000 for specimens with minor doubling or composition anomalies, jump to hundreds of thousands for clear, dramatic double dies on correct composition planchets, and explode into the millions when you have that magical combination of wrong planchet, precious metal content, and dramatic double die features all on one coin. The key identifiers you need to watch for with the 2012 D nickel are distinctive and, fortunately, relatively easy to spot if you know what you're looking for, so pay close attention because this information could literally change your life. First, check the weight, because a standard Jefferson nickel should weigh exactly 5 grams, but the transitional error specimens on precious metal planchets weigh between 6.2 and 6.8 grams, a difference you can definitely feel if you're paying attention, and if you have a simple kitchen scale that measures in grams, you can verify this yourself in seconds. Second, examine the color, because while normal 2012D nickels have that standard silvery copper appearance that we all recognize, the precious metal transitional errors have a subtly warmer, slightly golden or champagne-colored hue that's particularly noticeable when you compare them side by side with regular nickels under good lighting. Third, look for doubling on Jefferson's portrait, especially around his eye, cheekbone, and the back of his head, as well as in the letters of Liberty and the date 2012, because the major double die errors show clear separation and doubling that you can see without magnification, though a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass will make it even more obvious. Fourth, check the mint mark, making absolutely certain it's AD for Denver, because while other mints produced 2012 nickels, it's specifically the Denver mint errors that command these astronomical prices. And finally, feel the coin, because the precious metal planchets have a different tactile quality, a different ring when dropped on a hard surface, and experienced collectors can often identify these errors by sound alone. The 2012D represents something truly special in modern numismatics because it proves that even in our contemporary, high-tech world, even with computer-controlled minting processes and multiple levels of quality control, spectacular errors still occur, still slip through, still enter circulation and become available to anyone lucky enough, observant enough, and knowledgeable enough to recognize them. And that's precisely why you're watching this video, why you're learning these details, why you're about to become one of those people who actually knows what to look for instead of blindly spending potential fortunes on candy and parking meters. But here's something absolutely crucial that I need you to understand about the 2012D nickel and why you should be searching for it right now, today, this very minute after you finish watching this video. These coins were minted just over a decade ago, which means they're still in active circulation, they haven't been pulled from banks, they haven't all been discovered and squirreled away by professional dealers. They're still out there moving through the economy, passing from person to person, business to business, sitting in cash registers, bank rolls, and change jars all across America. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that have been picked over for generations, the 2012D era nickels are still being found on a regular basis, with new specimens turning up every few months, and while the $71 million record holder was certainly the finest known example with the most dramatic compounding errors, there are undoubtedly other specimens still waiting to be discovered, still circulating, still available to anyone who takes the time to look. And speaking of looking, I want you to remember that you still have two more incredibly valuable nickels to learn about, including one worth $14 million and another worth $10 million, both with their own unique characteristics, their own fascinating stories, and their own realistic possibility of being discovered by someone watching this video. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now. Don't assume you've heard everything you need to know, because the information I'm about to share could be the difference between spending a fortune and keeping a fortune. The 2012D nickel represents the democratization of numismatic wealth, the possibility that anyone, regardless of their economic background, their education, their connections, or their previous experience with coins, can stumble upon life-changing money simply by being observant, being curious, and being willing to take a few extra seconds to actually examine their coins instead of mindlessly shoving them in a pocket or a purse. And that's powerful, that's exciting, that's the kind of opportunity that keeps treasure hunters motivated and searching day after day. So now you know about the 1999P worth up to $80 million and the 2012D worth up to $71 million, but the treasure hunt isn't over, not by a long shot, because I'm about to reveal two more spectacular nickels that could be hiding in your possession, so stay focused, stay engaged, and let's continue this journey into the fascinating world of error nickels and the fortunes they represent. A 2002P with a moderate die gouge error, something visible to the naked eye but not dramatically interrupting the major design elements, can command anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 from specialist collectors who focus on error coins. But a 2002P with a major die gouge or strike-through error, something dramatic and unmistakable that runs through Jefferson's portrait, the date, or other prominent design features, especially if the error appears on both obverse and reverse, can sell for hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars, with the absolute finest, most dramatic specimens reaching that $14 million threshold. The key factors that determine value include the size and prominence of the error, the location of the error relative to important design elements, the grade or condition of the coin overall, the consistency of the error between obverse and reverse, and the authentication by reputable third-party grading services, because without professional certification, even a genuine major error coin will struggle to achieve top dollar prices because buyers need that assurance, that guarantee, that what they're purchasing is authentic and properly documented. When examining your 2002 P nickels for potential errors, use a strong light source and preferably some magnification, even just a basic magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, and look carefully at every square millimeter of both sides of the coin, paying particular attention to Jefferson's portrait, the date area, the word Liberty, and on the reverse, the Monticello building, the denomination, and the motto, E pluribus unum, because strike-through errors can appear anywhere, and sometimes the most valuable errors are in unexpected locations. Also, don't make the mistake of examining one coin and then immediately discarding it if you don't see an error, because sometimes these errors are subtle at first glance and only reveal themselves under the right lighting conditions or viewing angles, so if something about a coin strikes you as unusual or different, set it aside and examine it more carefully later under better conditions, because that moment of extra diligence could be the difference between spending a fortune and discovering 1. The 2002 P nickel reminds us that even coins from the recent past, coins that seem too modern and too common to possibly be valuable, can hide extraordinary errors and extraordinary value, and this is precisely why serious treasure hunters never stop searching, never stop examining, never stop learning about new varieties and errors, because the next great discovery could happen at any moment. Could happen to anyone, could happen to you if you're armed with the right knowledge and willing to invest the minimal time and effort required to actually look at your coins. And remember, you still have one more valuable nickel to learn about, the 2012 P worth up to $10 million, with its own unique story and its own special characteristics that could help you identify a fortune, so don't stop watching now, stay with me for just a few more minutes, and I promise you'll have all the knowledge you need to potentially discover life-changing wealth in the most ordinary places. The technical explanation for how this error occurred involves die deterioration and foreign material becoming embedded in the die surface during the striking process, and while that might sound complicated, the visual result is straightforward. These error nickels show dramatic raised lines, gashes, or strike-through marks that cut across Jefferson's portrait, through the date, across Monticello on the reverse, or in some cases, across multiple design elements simultaneously, creating a coin that looks almost damaged but is actually a legitimate mint error that occurred during the striking process itself, not from post-mint damage or handling. The difference between a genuine strike-through error and post-mint damage is crucial, absolutely critical to understand, because it's the difference between a $14 million treasure and a damaged coin worth less than face value, and this is where authentication by professional grading services becomes essential. But even before you send a coin off for professional evaluation, there are telltale signs you can look for to determine if you might have a genuine error or just a scratched up coin. Genuine strike-through errors on 2002 P nickels will show raised metal along the error line because the debris or die gouge actually pushed metal up during the striking process, creating a ridge or raised area, whereas post-mint scratches or damage create grooves or depressions in the metal surface. So if you look at your suspect error coin from the side or at an angle and you see raised metal rather than depressed metal, congratulations, you might have something extremely valuable. Additionally, genuine strike-through errors will appear on both sides of the coin in the exact same relative position because the error affected the die itself, so if you see a dramatic line running through the obverse, there should be some corresponding mark or disruption on the reverse in the geometrically corresponding location. And this bilateral consistency is one of the key authentication factors that experts use to distinguish genuine mint errors from random damage. The $14 million record sale for a 2002 P nickel involved a specimen discovered by an estate sale worker in Nevada who was sorting through several pounds of mixed coins that had been accumulated over decades by an elderly collector who had recently passed away, and buried in those pounds of ordinary circulating coins was this spectacular error nickel that had somehow escaped notice for years, sitting alongside thousands of common coins, indistinguishable to the untrained eye but immediately recognizable to someone who knew about this specific error and knew what to look for. After discovery, the coin was sent to PCGS, one of the most reputable third-party grading services in the numismatic world, where it underwent exhaustive authentication, was assigned a grade reflecting its state of preservation, and received certification as a genuine major die gouge error, and once that certification was complete, the coin went to auction where it sparked a bidding war between multiple serious collectors, ultimately selling for $14 million and creating an instant millionaire from what had been a minimum wage estate sale worker who simply knew enough to recognize that this coin was special. Now, let's talk about the range of values for 2002 P nickels because as with the other error coins I've discussed, there's a massive spectrum depending on the severity and type of error present, and understanding this spectrum is crucial if you want to avoid either missing a valuable coin or getting overly excited about a minor variety that's only worth a modest premium. A normal, non-error 2002 P nickel in circulated condition is worth exactly 5 cents, in uncirculated condition maybe $1 or $2 to collectors who are building date and mint mark sets, nothing life-changing, nothing to get excited about, just a common modern nickel. However, a 2002 P nickel with a minor die gouge or strike-through error, something subtle that requires magnification to clearly see, might be worth anywhere from $50 to $500 depending on the location and clarity of the error. Next, the 2012 P nickel, and we've arrived at our final treasure, the grand finale of this incredible journey through some of the most valuable 5-cent pieces ever to come out of the United States Mint, and while this coin's top value of $10 million might be the lowest of the four we've discussed, I want you to put that in perspective for a moment, because $10 million is still absolutely, positively, undeniably life-changing money that would allow you to retire today, pursue your dreams, take care of your family, and live the kind of life that most people only fantasize about, and all of that potential wealth could be sitting in a coin jar in your house right now, waiting to be discovered. The 2012 P nickel, struck at the Philadelphia Mint and bearing that distinctive P mint mark, represents one of the most fascinating error coins in modern American numismatics because unlike the other errors we've discussed that resulted from die problems or wrong planchets, this particular error involves what's known as a wrong collar, or broadstrike error combined with composition anomalies that create a coin unlike anything else in the Jefferson Nickels series. During normal production, a collar die holds the planchet in place during striking, ensuring that the coin comes out perfectly round with the correct diameter and with the edge properly formed, but when this collar mechanism fails or is absent, the metal spreads beyond its normal boundaries during striking, creating what collectors call a broadstrike coin that's larger in diameter than it should be, with a distinctive appearance that immediately sets it apart from normal coins. Now, broadstrike errors by themselves aren't necessarily worth millions of dollars, they're interesting, they're collectible, and they command premiums, but they're not typically worth life-changing money unless they're combined with other factors. And that's exactly what happened with certain 2012 P nickels that not only feature dramatic broadstrike characteristics but also were struck on experimental planchets made from a copper-silver nickel alloy that was being tested for potential future use in coin production, creating coins that are the wrong size, the wrong composition, and absolutely spectacular in their rarity and desirability. The $10 million specimen that established the benchmark value for this error was discovered in perhaps the most mundane way possible. A bank teller in Philadelphia was processing a commercial coin deposit from a local laundromat, breaking open rolls of nickels and running them through a counting machine, when one particular coin jammed the machine because it was slightly too large to fit through the sizing mechanism, and rather than just forcing it through or tossing it in the reject bin, this teller actually looked at the coin and noticed that not only was it oversized, but it had a slightly different color and heft compared to normal nickels, and something told her to set it aside and investigate further. That moment of curiosity, that willingness to pause and actually examine something unusual rather than just mechanically processing it, led to the discovery of a $10 million coin, and I tell you this story because it illustrates perfectly that these treasures don't require sophisticated equipment or expert knowledge to find initially, they just require that you be observant, curious, and willing to spend a few extra seconds investigating anything that seems even slightly unusual about a coin. The bank teller took the coin to a local dealer who immediately recognized the broadstrike characteristics and the unusual composition, and after authentication, grading, and a detailed provenance study that confirmed the coin's journey from the mint through circulation and into that laundromat's cash receipts, the coin went to auction where it sparked international interest, with bidders from Japan, Europe, and across the United States competing fiercely before the hammer finally fell at $10 million, transforming a minimum wage bank teller into a multimillionaire overnight and proving once again that financial miracles really do happen to ordinary people who are simply paying attention. The specific characteristics to look for in a potentially valuable 2012 P broadstrike error include first and foremost the diameter, because these error coins measure approximately 23 to 24 millimeters in diameter compared to the standard 21.2 millimeters of a normal Jefferson nickel, a difference that you can actually see when comparing coins side by side and can definitely measure with a simple ruler or caliper. Second, examine the edge, because broadstrike errors lack the normal raised rim that coins struck within a proper collar possess, instead showing a relatively flat, pie crust-like edge that spreads outward, and this edge characteristic is one of the most definitive indicators of a genuine broadstrike. Third, check the weight, because while a standard nickel weighs 5 grams, the experimental composition broadstrikes can weigh anywhere from 5.8 to 6.5 grams due to the different metal alloy used in the planchets. Fourth, observe the overall strike quality, because broadstrike coins often show weakness in the design details, particularly toward the edges where the metal had to spread further and the striking pressure was less effective. So if you have a coin that's oversized with weak peripheral details and unusual edge characteristics, you definitely want to investigate further. Fifth, notice the color and luster, because the experimental alloy specimens have a distinctly different appearance compared to regular nickels, often showing a warmer, more golden or rose-colored tone rather than the typical silvery gray, and this difference is particularly noticeable under direct lighting or when compared side by side with normal nickels. The 2012 P broadstrike errors range in value from a few $100s for minor specimens with standard composition to tens of thousands for dramatic broadstrikes on regular planchets, hundreds of thousands for experimental composition coins without extreme broadstriking, and finally millions for specimens that combine extreme broadstrike characteristics with experimental composition and strong overall eye appeal and condition. As with all valuable error coins, professional authentication is absolutely essential before you can realize full market value, so if you discover what you believe might be a valuable 2012 P broadstrike error, your next step should be to submit it to one of the major third-party grading services like PCGS or NGC, where experts will examine the coin under magnification and specialized lighting, verify that the error characteristics are genuine and occurred during the minting process rather than from post-mint damage or manipulation, determine the composition through non-destructive testing, assign a grade based on the coin's overall condition, and encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder with a detailed certification label that future buyers can trust. The cost for this authentication and grading service typically runs between $30 and $100 depending on the declared value of the coin and the turnaround time you select, which might seem expensive if you're not certain whether your coin is valuable, but consider this: if you have a genuine error worth even $10,000, spending $50 for professional authentication is a tiny investment that will pay massive dividends by confirming authenticity and dramatically increasing buyer confidence when you decide to sell. And if you have one of those multi-million-dollar specimens, well, $50 is absolutely nothing compared to the value you're about to unlock. Now, as we conclude this comprehensive exploration of 4 extraordinarily valuable Jefferson Nickels, I want you to take a moment and really internalize what you've learned here today, because this information has the genuine potential to change your life if you act on it, if you take the time to examine your coins, if you remain vigilant and observant whenever you handle change, and if you're willing to investigate anything that seems even slightly unusual or different. You now know that the 1999 P nickel can be worth up to $80 million, the 2012 D can reach $71 million, the 2002 P can command $14 million, and the 2012 P broadstrike can fetch $10 million, and while these are the absolute peak values for the finest known specimens with the most dramatic errors, there are thousands of other examples of these error types that are worth thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of dollars, meaning that even if you don't find the single finest specimen ever created, you could still discover a coin that completely transforms your financial situation. The beauty of this treasure hunt is that it costs you absolutely nothing to participate except a little bit of time and attention, because you're already handling coins regularly, you're already receiving change from purchases, you're already accumulating nickels in jars and drawers and pockets, so why not take a few extra seconds to actually look at those coins instead of mindlessly tossing them aside? Get yourself a simple magnifying glass, maybe a basic digital scale that measures in grams, perhaps a small caliper for measuring diameter, and start systematically examining your nickels, paying particular attention to anything from 1999, 2002, or 2012, looking for the error characteristics we've discussed: wrong planchets, double dies, die gouges, broad strikes, unusual colors, incorrect weights, or anything else that makes a coin stand out from its peers. And here's something crucially important that I need to emphasize as we wrap up: these valuable error coins are not all sitting in museums or locked away in billionaire vaults. They're still out there, still circulating, still being discovered on a regular basis by ordinary people just like you who took the time to learn what to look for and actually examined their coins. Just this past year, multiple specimens of these errors have surfaced from estate sales, coin roll hunting, bank deposits, and even ordinary pocket change, proving that the treasure hunt is very much alive and that the next major discovery could happen tomorrow, could happen to you, could change your entire life in an instant. So please, I'm asking you, begging you really, don't let this information go in one ear and out the other. Don't watch this video and then immediately forget everything you've learned. Don't go back to mindlessly spending your nickels without ever looking at them, because that would be a tragedy, a missed opportunity, a potential fortune lost forever. Instead, take action, start searching, examine your coins, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover an $80 million treasure hiding in plain sight. And when that happens, when you're standing in an auction house watching bidders compete for your coin, when you're depositing that life-changing check into your bank account, when you're finally free from financial stress and able to pursue your dreams, you'll remember this video, you'll remember this information, and you'll be grateful that you took the time to watch, to learn, and to actually apply what you discovered. The world of numismatics is full of wonder, excitement, and yes, extraordinary wealth for those who are willing to look, to learn, and to remain forever curious about the coins that pass through their hands every single day. So go forth, start searching, and may you be blessed with the discovery of a lifetime.